Okay, greetings everyone. Visible and invisible, right? You are with us. We're alive at the same time in the Matrix. To me, it means something. It registers that it can't be a coincidence that everyone around is like AI people. And I say like because we kind of are like AI people too, except, and the point is that you can't really tell who is and who isn't, except we paid to be here and had all kinds of certain requirements to be fulfilled before we can leave. And I know I can hear, some of the AI people going, "No way. There's no way that's true." And I have been on the other side, right? Where I was talking to a Palestinian woman. And for you white people who are like, I don't fucking care about anybody but white people, there's something wrong with you. There's something wrong with you. And you're nowhere near us in physical distance. Back home on Venus, we think you're disgustingly backwards. We think your music sucks, your books suck, everything about you sucks, you're boring. And you can take your God from a foreign land that you're so proud of, and specifically Christian identity people, you're literally fucking brain damaged, or you're that dumb, or you're evil, or you're leading some of this. People are like, what are you talking about? Who do you think really controls the world? If you think for a second the richest people in the world would put everything that they've ever worked for some people for thousands of years, like the descendants of old money, of the Merovingian cunts. Yeah, that's back when they didn't even provide sewers or running water for poor people in cities. That's when people died of bacterial diseases before they were 40. I mean, you call that civilization. You call that evolution because you're unaware, you're dumb. I don't know how to say it. Man, there's no evolution of humankind. There's involution of humankind. We peaked out, like my friend says that I work with. Yeah, they still don't really know how they built those pyramids in Egypt because we peaked out. And some people might say, didn't they have slaves and shit back then? Who do you trust for this information? I mean, in this hypothetical person that I'm not talking about anyone specifically says, I trust the Catholic pedophile church, the universal church of the pedophile. That's why they were never allowed to marry and blah blah blah. You don't know, you don't understand that in reality. men who sign up for a thing when they're basically teenagers to never, ever, 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 ever be with a woman, you don't think that attracts something unnatural, kind of strange? Because you're fucking brain damaged. And, I've had a little bit of static about, oh, you don't think the universe is conscious? You don't think this is more just Jewish Kabbalah, and it's also Christian Kabbalah. Yeah, and I'm like, no, you tell me who the universe is. God, my dog. Okay, for you, for you. And if I found something different, if I find something, I'll let you know. But someone asked me, about near-death experiences, and a voice spoke to me. I said it was you. I think it was God. That's what I said. You. And it's strange how the U and the V are so close. And V means victory, and it means 5. I mean, I started to realize I don't even know what these things mean, like letters and numbers. And I'll be honest with you. The last motherfuckers I'm going to trust are Madam Big Blavatsky. Or any of them. As far as we're concerned, you can take your fucking Hebrew and all your fucking Jewish shit, all of it. We don't need any of it. It disgusts us, makes us want to throw up. Right? Why? Well, the gods, let me ask you, know it all. The gods, who are the gods of evil? Well, that would be Satan, which in the Bible says is created by God. Was there evil before Satan? No. Did God create evil? Yes. That's what it says in Isaiah chapter 45. That's what the whole book of Job is about, is I'm in control of everything, including the devil, as the Lutheran, Martin Luther said, the devil is God's devil. You don't get that? Like Maria says, you're smart. You'll figure it out. And on that, oh, Maria's here now. She was like, Joe, tell them, who are the gods of the smaller man? Are they giants? No, they're not. Maria, I was taught by you. It's taken, listen, I'm not fucking ever claiming to be smart like some people. It took me a while to understand how these things made sense. I remember telling our sister Mindy many times along the way, like, all of a sudden, everything made sense. Everything in my whole life, because of the context, right? And this is where actually my mentality and mind is. I have been for thinking for 14 and a half years about what just happened last Saturday. And I haven't missed a ritual in many, many years. So I think Maria's here. She's like, yeah, I could conservatively say I've done 700 of these with her. I think that would be somewhere around the number. And nowadays, we are fighting serious spiritual warfare against the gods of war and death of the Matrix, the death cult, the smiley face killers, the death cults, killer cults of America. I'll never forget when Maria said to me, yeah, some of the evilest people that you know of are Joe Rogan, Elon Musk, and Alex Jones. And I said, Austin, Texas. They all are in Austin, Texas. And she said, yeah, I swear to fucking gods that this happened to me. And if you don't know the context, I guess it wouldn't be that big of a deal. But I'm not really in contact with anything, as, you know, on the internet or anywhere else. And she said to me, look up Smiley Face Killers, Austin, Texas. And I was like, whoa. Because she knew this before I did and showed me this. And she said to me, these people, they're like the new gangsters. You know what I mean? Of like the Jewish mob. They're like the Goyim, like the Italians were. And they've been dealing drugs, mainly in ecstasy, Molly, whatever you want to call it, synthetic drugs from Israel. Okay, let's just put it that way. The plain goddamn truth. And there was, this is no lie. Like she said, just go on, Joe. Because I was like, holy, what's the point? But that's not the point for me to make a point. I'm just transmitting to you. And when I looked this up, it may not have been exactly that day because I had long been since 2014 telling people about this, following this, trying to inform people about this, the Talmud, smiley face killers, death cult killing people, sacrificing people to the goddesses of the rivers. And let me tell you, you're nowhere unless you're in touch with what actually real people in another world use as their access points into this reality. And, you know, like it or not, this is Maria's, as where the Mississippi River and the Missouri River meet, are where her and her best friends' pussies meet and orgasm together to create a new world. That's almost word for word how I was told. And she was like, I'll leave it to you, Mr. Artist, to write the rest of the myth. But you could say, you know, we started out dancing together and we ended up coming together, as you would say in your time. This is like a woman that looks like she's 20 years old talking like she's an old grandma. Like, yeah, back in your time. Like, back in my time. I look like I'm 3 times older than you. Rhea, I want you to know, though, she likes me. We're kind of, in a way, made for each other. As far as teacher, student, teacher, it's in the astrology, not in the, it's in the vibration, not in the actual academics. What we talk about is the religion of eternal true love, which scientifically is proved through a machine, as you would call it on Earth, on Venus, that reads out what we call frequency match technology of your life. It's basically like such an in-depth analysis of your astrology that it connects you to usually less than 100 people in a world of 100 billion, which isn't even exact, maybe a little over, maybe a little under. We don't, there is sort of earthling type marriages on Venus, but we come from a caste that believes in the closest match logically would be the most eternal. And believe it or not, when you don't have to eat, drink, sleep, slave away at your job, be under the pressure of money, your boss, and everything that I am like you are, believe it, when all that's taken away and you're really left to say, okay, now pursue what you really want. Do I have a eternal true love? Is some people's only question. They don't give a fuck about your physics or anything else. They don't care about any of that. They don't care if there's aliens on fucking, in another galaxy somewhere to think we're food or think we're interesting. And like to that person, they're like, who cares? I don't even give a fuck if a green dude from another planet likes me. I want to know, do I have someone that like worships me? Because it's weird. My mind is just going with Maria. And she's like, this was like this is like into the rituals. And she is like, I'll just tell you, I don't know if I've ever talked about this. I guess it was like maybe it could have been the third or fourth ritual. She's here with me right now. And before the ritual and while we were dancing, I was like, man, thank you. I didn't know how to like say it. I was a little bit afraid of her, to tell you the truth. Like I was afraid because I was starting to realize like, how is this happening? At first, I didn't even really question it. I just thought, she said she's a guy. This was, if you want to know my exact thoughts were, she said she's a goddess and she can do fucking magic. I know that sounds naive, but as soon as I started doing what she was told me to do for the first time, I didn't hear her voice until I went out by the tree. Now I know. The tree is where Lou goes in and out of this world. I know it sounds crazy, but Lucifer. And when I went out there, she was like, Joseph, my son, can you hear me? And I was like, I can hear you. I was like, you're the Missouri River goddess? She's like, I am, and I'm your mother. She is like, you're doing exactly what I told you to do. And she said, and you're on time. I said, I'm excited. I was so hoping to talk to you again. This is the first communications me and her ever had while I wasn't on mushrooms, because I was just preparing. And she showed me that night how to cleanse the house. And she showed me to really imagine a initiation circle for myself to get in as a vehicle, not to astral project and look at this world, but to completely enter her dimension. She's the river. She's the magic flow of the river that creates a space. It's her world, her space. She's like, you can do this. And I was like, okay, I'm going to do it. And people don't know unless you've done this, how big of a deal it is. I've had people say, "I've taken 5 grams of mushrooms and it didn't do anything." And, like, every single person that I ever said that to said, "Where those mushrooms sucked. Those weren't good mushrooms. Those were probably old or something's off there." And, she actually told me, what music to put on and how, to dance. She was and I had no clue whatsoever that one day she would be like, "I'm this lady," you know? I knew her face. I didn't know how well I didn't know how well I knew her face, as the Missouri River Goddess, but I was telling lots of people. Um, and that was a first part of an initiation was, would you have the courage to do this, right? And we love you. We're with you. And we're going to finish. I think we're going to finish. Son of the widower. Right. And let me, this may be a third time I've read this paragraph, but I feel like it's this important. It's so now. The amour of Lucifer and Lilith. Amour. A equals without. More equals death. Without death makes possible the recovery by will of the totality of opposites, the pair of opposites. I don't know. I didn't understand. I probably read that and didn't understand until Maria. And this is the difference between the Western woman, like I was saying, and the vril woman. The vril woman has a teacher, and she is honored to be the student of that teacher and is loyal to that single teacher till the day forever, till the day of forever. And this is exactly what Maria was teaching me for weeks and weeks about chaos magic is to replace your pairs of opposites. Like I said earlier, there's a feeling of eternal true love. It may fade almost to nothing, but the opposite of that feeling is the feeling of lukewarm. Okay? See, when we lose those pairs of opposites, check this out. Where we come from, God and the devil are on one side. Opposite of that is the truth. Okay? Because what's crazy is the whole Christian Judeo Christianity, right? Says that God and Satan are opposites, but the Bible says God created Satan. False opposites. And it's easily said People with the same pairs of opposites attract to each other. And if it's not that, scientifically, you might say, vibrationally, we would say, then it will definitely not be eternal. If it's not vibrational match, frequency match. Everyone we know bases everything on this frequency match because it's, you might say, human divorce rate, is like as high as 50%. And the divorce rate with the frequency match technology on Venus is literally zero. You don't enter a marriage without, because like she said, these are the technology that equals our psychic, not even equals, but simulates our psychic abilities. It's like an X-ray of the human psychic ability to be attracted to someone without the mind control, without the brainwashing, without the media, without the power of suggestion, which always works, the power of intimidation, and all these things that always work scientifically. You might say, they can't take this from me. But if someone walks around in your ear whispering the opposite, they'll convince you to take it from you. And you won't be able to do anything about it because you think some invisible supernatural power has chosen you to protect you, and that you're going to have good luck and you're always going to be blessed while they get hit by bombs and their children die and they have to feel the misery, while none of it's true. The only reason any of this happens is because the people don't hate evil enough to find out who's really behind this and do something about it. It's that simple, right? Recovery by will, by choice of the totality of opposites, hot or cold, the pair of opposites within each individual, with the union of their masculine animus, Lilith, and their feminine anima, Lucifer. To use the terminology of Professor Young, each one marries their spouse with their own self and is able to give birth to the true Son of Man or woman, impregnated by the man or by the woman. The astral body is what we're talking about, right? Able to give birth to the astral body, a subtle body, androgen, Shiva, Ardhana, Nasisvara, Vera. To do this, Lucifer has had to remain the widower of Lilith here on earth and be impregnated by she, giving birth to the son of the widower, the astral body, with the face of the beloved, that on reclothing an earthly body for a short time will make possible the appearance of a cast of hero warriors in this world who will fight to redeem the remainder of the heroes, Hyperboreans and Aryans imprisoned and hypnotized by the demiurge, whom is assisted by Saturn, Satan, Jehovah, and its genetic robots, the bankers. As I have already mentioned, and the sons of the widower, question mark, they are the result of the mental contact of Eve with a off-planet first husband who left her, thereby making her. Okay. Lilith, here on Earth, be impregnated by she. All right? Talking about to do this, Lucifer had to remain the widower of Lilith, here on Earth and be impregnated by she. I was like, how does that happen? It happened to me. Giving birth to the son of the widower, the astral body, you, with the face of the eternal true love, if you have one, that on reclothing an earthly body for a short time will make possible the appearance of a caste of hero warriors in this world who will fight to redeem the remainder of the Viras. You hear that? Fight to redeem the remainder of the heroes. Hyperboreans and Aryans, imprisoned and hypnotized by the demiurge, who is assisted by Saturn, Satan, Jehovah, and its genetic robots, the Jews. As I have already mentioned, and we'll just say very quickly, those symbols of the old world, Satan, Saturn, Jehovah, are embodied by Aleister Crowley in this time. And I didn't finish. I never said, who are the gods of the smaller evil men? There are other men, mainly top Kabbalist at the turn of the 18th century. So that would be late 18th century Jewish Kabbalists who were teaching that Yahweh and Jehovah were mental creations of the collective unconscious being brainwashed, but that the magician can take hold of that Frankenstein and jump in it theirself and be God. You got that? And the men who were best at doing that, and they showed that they were best at doing it by acting like Yahweh, by killing people with no conscience, raping, murdering, killing, stealing, doing all kinds of gross things, And someone might say, well, drinking your own urine is gross, right? No. If you look into it and you really understand, especially if your body is, in a very magical state and you deliberately keep your body clean of toxins and shit like that, take care of yourself. No, it actually can be therapy. And if you think about it, it's, as long as you're removing all the toxins in your system, it's like electrically charged with your essence, with the very true self essence that makes you, animated here in the matrix, right? And the sons of the widower, they are the result of the mental contact of Eve with a off-planet first husband who left her, thereby making her a widow. Through parthenogenesis, right, in her mind, she gave birth to a hero named Cain in biblical legend. The other sons of Eve will be born in pain. And after shifting of Kundalini, the serpent. Okay, you hear that? The real truth was this myth was showing the other sons of Eve will be born in pain because of the shifting of the Kundalini serpent. The descendants of Cain, the Cainites, are the sons of the widow who were responsible for the initial spread of Gnosticism, of Gnosis, as well as the esoterica of Memphis, Mizraim, Memphis, Mizraim in ancient Egypt. But Judaism also penetrated their systems, infiltrating it through Masonic lodges that in much earlier centuries had become centers of Satanism. And the same Masonic lodges were then later guilty of instigating the renowned French Revolution, promoting liberalism and the so-called independence of America, Marxism, and the current globalism that you see. And that is where work continues for the creation of the robot Messiah of Israel, the ultimate Golem clone that will rule over an enslaved world at the end of the Kali Yuga, with its headquarters as the empire located in the south of the world, from the 40th degree latitude to Antarctica. However, with the revelation of the banker lies and fakery behind their myths and legends, they must also be significantly affected, because it proves that their Temple of Solomon in Palestine, with its columns of Boaz and Jachin, their great architect Hiram, and their entire Judeo-Masonic symbolism and legend never actually existed. Just like their gods are themselves, I'm telling you, my niggas. It will be such that there will be no salvation for these Masons, lest they return to the occult origins, resurrecting the mystery of mysteries. And the same shall be for the Christians and Muslims. They too must understand that they cannot fight against the sons of the widower, because a son of the widow can transform and is capable of transmutation into a son of the widower. The Black Order of the SS. The Black Order of the SS. We must correct here the inaccurate belief that the SS were founded only as a bodyguard for the Fuhrer, although they appeared to be nothing more than that to the general public. The true founders of the order and National Socialism among whom even Himmler himself was a secondary figure, claim to be otherwise. The leftward swastika, for example, that rotates in a direction opposite from the rotation of the Earth, signals the return to polar hyperborea. This expressly concerns the overcoming of humanity in order to recover the Superman, total man, God man, the God of divine, the vine's origins. This is also the swastika of the bone, B-O-N, bone from pre-Buddhist Tibet. SS stands for Schwarzi sun, Schwarzi Stein, the black sun of the Tibetans, the black sun of the Hyperboreans, and Aeneas, an Aeneas, Anaya, and Aeneas. And that would be it's Sanskrit, Ainus, Sanskrit for black sun, which is the astral sun, which is also the black stone of the Muslim Kaaba. Also, the black uniform, the skull and crossbones, which had nothing to do with the later Harvard and Yale copies. The black uniform with the skull and bones are a secret key, totally distinct from that of Masonic Brotherhood of Skull and Bones. It's a distinct key difference. We find the strange substance called Tulu in the skull and bones, but this should not be consumed through cannibalism, but incorporated telepathically into the astral body to facilitate the resurrection of the flesh. Should I read that again? We find the strange substance called Tulu in Sanskrit this is the DMT from your pineal gland when you die. We find we find also known as adrenochrome. We find the strange substance called Tulu in the skull and bones, but this should not be consumed through cannibalism, but incorporated telepathically into the astral body to facilitate the resurrection of the flesh. Esoteric Hitlerism knew of and met with esoteric Christianity and esoteric Islam. Just as my dream had showed me that Jesus, he was just the magic janitor in the church. He wasn't the dude on the cross. Which is great, which is so artistic. And who are listen, me and Maria, we're talking about Lou. We're not talking about anyone else. There's no one else we're talking about. There's not somebody else coming. And from there, they came to know the Mufti of Jerusalem and the Pope Pius XII, who lived with a German nun at his side, his Soror Mystica. Pope Pius XII saw the flying saucers of Hitlerism and certainly knew about the, quote, virginity of Mary, possible through her divine pregnancy with the child Jesus, in the same manner Eve gave birth to Cain through parthenogenesis. She became pregnant telepathically with a divine being, a divya, a god, who was also her spouse. That is what is depicted in the figure of the angel in the painting by Leonardo with the gaze. Thus, the Jesus of legend would also be a son of a widow. In the castle temple of Wilsberg, there was a select group of initiates who practiced a secret Occidental yoga destined to recover the Superman, the total man, with his two cerebral hemispheres activated. I was in the underground precincts of Wilsberg with 12 stone pillar seats surrounding a circular space destined for a sacred fire, lit to ascend through an opening high above with a leftwards swastika of the black sun, the astral tube through which the astral must escape. That is also the Son of Man, who is able to resurrect the physical body in the warrior's tomb, the SS tombs through man, the life rune, the man rune. I actually have it. And newly, right? Who is able to resurrect the physical body in the warrior's tomb. That is through the man rune, the rune of life, and newly populate polar Hyperborea, the New Schwabenland, the Hitlerist base in Antarctica on the Weddell Sea of Queen Maud's land, from whence the Superman went away towards the star of Venus and towards Aldebaran in their UFOs, or Vimanas, you might say. That is, in their rounded, materialized astral bodies with indestructible, immortal Vajra to transmute their shapes and again metamorphose themselves at will. The underground temple precinct of Wilsberg was a reproduction of the solar temple of the Black Sun of the first Kaaba, pre-Islamic, pre-Vedic, the off-planet one, the out-of-dimension one, a symbolic lance or imaginary arrow. Imaginary arrow connects the castle of Wilsberg with the ruins of Externstein, Sternstein, Star of Stone. This is where Maria did a lot of her last rituals. Do you hear what he's saying? It's like a symbolic lance, a long spear, or an imaginary arrow connects Wilsberg Castle with the ruins of Externstein. Ruins. With the ruins of Externstein. And there Odin was sculpted, crucified on the Yggdrasil tree, and an open tomb hollowed out of solid rock is also there, which Maria laid in, which is where he resurrected himself. Meaning, when he died, he walked into his astral body with no disconnection. He was exactly who he was 1 second later in a different body. And it's quite a remarkable, funny thing when someone dies and they sit right up and go, no biggie. It's just nature, and I get it. And Miguel Serrano. Here's the tomb. Here's the open tomb. Um, you can look up Odin on the cross, Externstein. But here's the hollowed out open tomb, rock tomb that he was talking about. And as Maria was just saying, she laid many times after taking 20, 30 grams of Amanita muscaria mushrooms. She laid in this and left this world. And as she said to me, I became the UFO. How did it work? I had already been it many, many times, right? And this appendix was added. Something incredible. He really wants you to hear this, because we all feel bad about what's happening to Muslims, right? Something incredible, diabolically evil. Prior to September 11th, 2001, the U.S. $20 bill exactly reproduces the aerial attack on the Twin Towers of New York. And the Pentagon, is encrypted with the name Osama. This appears as something so incredible and extraordinary that the animal men do not seem to comprehend it and let it pass without any feeling of wonder or terror. This is one further, hot or cold, this is one further announcement. And together with the 666 in the barcode, confirms that the devil of Thelema rules in these last days. Fold the $20 bill like this, kind of like an airplane. The Twin Towers appear on fire. I don't know how well you can see this, but you can do this yourself. This shows you how to do it. Fold it like this. And the Pentagon, turn the bill over, and the Pentagon is ablaze. Double it thus like this. And what do you read in the letters? Osama. You read Osama. And Maria, she suggested I read this. This is from an interview with Miguel Serrano that you can find, I think you can find online, but I think it's in Spanish. So this would be, translated. And the interviewer says to Miguel Serrano here, and the Queen of Sheba, is this perhaps what led to the interview you did with Professor Young, the book, Visits of the Queen of Sheba? Is this what led to the interview and you meeting Professor Carl Jung? Miguel Serrano says, but first I must say, by the way, that it pleases me very much to be here because this is evidence of something that really existed in those days. One studied the religion of the mystery in my generation of 1938. You hear that? Just like Maria. He sounds so much like Maria right there. I love you both so much. One studied. He was like, my generation tried to fucking be different. We studied the religion of mystery in the 30s, 40s, and even through the 50s. Then it did not matter what one might think. The mystery was the main thing. The religion of mystery. And all this tradition has been lost in Chile. And what tied it all together was the mystery. Very well. So return to our theme. The Queen of Sheba. What is the Queen of Sheba? What was the Queen of Sheba? She is an archetype of love, of the eternal feminine. The archetype abides and then, like every other archetype, incarnates. And curiously, this cannot happen until there is a revelation. And this has occurred in Chile and perhaps in the world also. Only in our time has this happened, where the legend of the Queen of Sheba is born, precisely in Arabia, in Mecca, where the Kaaba is located. There is something most extraordinary, something that has never been known before. Well, how is this? The legend says that Abraham came to pray there with his son Ishmael in the exact region where Mecca is located in order to establish a special cult of worship to him. And there they found a cabin, a woman. They found in a cabin a woman who was a widow, and her name was Shiva. And she, not Sheba, Shiva, Shiva. And she said that she would admit him into this house on this condition that he would build there, that what he would build there would be kept in the possession of her descendants and the descendants who lived there, because of the widow, called themselves the sons of the widow. So they had a great stone there, a very ancient stone that the Greeks wrote about, called Kaaba, which meant cave, which in its root is the name Great Mother, to be precise. And the interviewer says, is this the same Great Mother as the one written about by Hermann Hesse in his book Damien? Serrano. It is the same universal mother that is in this case present in order to reach the Kaaba, the cave. This cave that is the symbol of the mother, the refuge, to be exact, of the Great Mother. And to enter this cave, there was a door named Shiva. All of this was in contact with legendary India and the god Shiva. In English, she would be the Queen of Shiva. This is all the same story. The god Shiva is an androgynous god of love. The god Shiva is an androgynous god of love, as is the Queen of Sheba. To have something that cannot be touched, I have here this. The interviewer says, "Wow, what a little pagan object." Serrano pulls out a little stone lingam. This is a lingam. This is a lingam with a yoni, male and female, in one single symbol of union, which is exactly what the Queen of Sheba represents. She is Kali as well. I have a portrait of the Queen of Sheba here, but it is from Ur. Serrano says, this culture appeared in Ur, which means Sumerian, right? In the Mesopotamian world. Okay. I have a portrait of the Queen of Sheba, but it's, oh my God, what is up with this thing? And Serrano says, yeah, culture appeared in Ur, like the rune, you are, which means Sumerian, the interviewer says, right? And he says Mesopotamian world, that would be Iraq. The interviewer here says, interesting how all this comes together. Who is the Queen of Sheba? Because on reading the book, there is a feeling of tremendous nostalgia for the loss of the Queen of Sheba. And on the other hand, an understanding that the Queen of Sheba must be lost together with this encounter. Loss, decline, remembered, little by little, as the story is told. What kind of love story is this, Mr. Serrano? It is the representation of the feminine, the eternal feminine, that on coming into contact with this world incarnates herself. But it also produces an era of catastrophe, the desire of fusion, of union, that incarnates continually and that comes and goes to separate itself. But there is something else. To touch on this more closely, there is something interesting about Islam. Islam, Allah, Allah, Allah means he, she. When Abraham went there to Mecca, he found there this Kaaba, this black stone inscribed with many names. They were the names of Shiva, Kali, and many other gods. But among them was the name Allah. And he manipulated that name. Why? Because El and Ella, Al and Allah mean he, she. And the most extraordinary thing is that all this is known, but known in a secret, esoteric order that is at the foundation of Islam. Is meaning Isis, and Lam, the way of Isis. Islam means the way of Isis. This is the way among the Egyptians as well. The interviewer says, so this is a mystery cult, the cult of Isis? Serrano says, and the Sufis are part of this story. There exists an order that is not spoken of nor heard about, the order of the black stone, or you might say the black sun, and that is not spoken about so much. And there existed back in the 30s and 40s a relationship between this order of the black stone and the German order of the black sun. Schwarzstein and Schwarzson. That was established through a secret contact with Islam. Wow. The story of the progress of the anima has an exterior story as well as an interior story, the interviewer says. Right? Listen to this. The story of progress of the soul or the anima has an exterior story as well as an interior story that connects the mystical Sufis and also with Saint okay, that connects an interior story that connects with mystic Sufis and also with Saint John of the Cross with his dark night of the soul. Isn't that so? Serrano says, totally. It is quite interesting that it's said this cult for a woman doesn't repeat itself, but on the contrary, it has been repeating. For example, in India, the Mongols were able to build the Taj Mahal for her divine love. And at the same time, the wife, the beloved, was put into the purdah, enclosed in a castle or palace so that no one could touch her. This was enclosed within the walls where no one saw her. And I remember that one day on the way to the Taj Mahal, I met the Rani Ti Agar Abal, a princess or a queen who was a widow. Okay, check this out. In the Kali Yuga, they had introduced democracy into India. So therefore, she was a member of parliament. There was an election, and that day she was on the road to make propaganda for the election campaign then underway. As we sat together under a tree, she said, I would so much rather pass my time instead in Purda. I don't care for democracy or parliament at all. I would so much rather to be with my husband, to make poetry and discuss philosophy and religion as we such do. This sacred love, the interviewer says to him, to Serrano, this secret, sacred love is connected in your book, El Ella, He, She, with the tradition of the Cathars, that esoteric tradition that was persecuted. So how does this conception of love connect with the Cathars? Where does this come from? This love comes from India. at its base. Lu, Donna, in essence, it derives from tantrism, from Hindu tantrism. It comes from the superb old Hindu temples. It goes out from there. What is the concept of tantrism? Don Miguel Serrano. For those who do not know, let them know. Tantrism is power, energy. It is to release and use sex, to use libido, which is at the base of the Kundalini. This serves as a love that is not only physical. I just saw a very curious film named The Destroyer or something like that. It was set in the future, and the people there were put in boxes where they would make love by looking at each other through a helmet, but without physical contact. And that would be everything because they would say, physical contact is gross. And I think this is something that has a point because there doesn't exist any organ specifically for love. The body does not have an organ exclusively for love. Nature from the depths goes flying out, overflowing with things for man, with a great fruitfulness, because nature is very prolific. A grain matures and throws out thousands of seeds, or in a lifetime, millions of sperm. Yet, nevertheless, no organ exists solely for love. The sexual organs are served for many other things. They exist for touch, the mouth for eating, the eyes exist to see. This is an idea that Tantrism understood in this way from the very start, that for tantric love, it is not necessary to be able to touch, because this is truly a limitation that technologies can deal with in a series of situations and can overcome, and thereby those techniques can replace what man had before. The interviewer says that technology can replace what is interior with techniques that have been used over a millennium. What a great question, right? The interviewer says that exterior technology can replace what is interior with techniques that have been used over millennia. Serrano says they can replace it with what the Monet call mana, the mind. For that a man must love a woman with all his chakras, with all his being. That Japanese have long done this by sitting next to each other. They are seated, here, him, and there, her, and they come to a situation that is very much like an orgasm, or is an orgasm, as we say. Therefore, the gypsies say that for love, there are three great pleasures in life: to eat well, to speak, and to die. The interviewer says, because the key actions are sexual actions? Yes, yes. Such is what they have in Tantrism. In this beautiful Cathar story, this beautiful story we have been running through in the part about India, in the end, the Queen of Sheba is lost. The protagonist is lost. The story appears to be in autobiographical form. In what sense is the story autobiographical? To begin with, Serrano says, to begin with, to meet the Queen of Sheba is very difficult. It's very difficult, but it is a privilege. It was a great event in the drama of his life when Professor Young discovered the archetype who is the Queen of Sheba. In this biography that Young wrote with Tony Wolfe, whom he was married to her, and she went away. That is because if one has the great privilege to meet the Queen of Sheba, then it is not in order to have sexual relations with or marry her, because that will end in destruction. If a man meets with the Queen of Sheba, then it is a doorway into loyalty. He cannot buy her. That cannot be. The Queen of Sheba is for amour and amour only. She is not for marriage. What is amour? Amour means without death. The interviewer. If we discuss concrete life, real things, where we marry and we die, is it possible to marry with amour? Is this an impossible dream, or must there be a definitive separation between a marriage and amour? One cannot approach, and Serrano says, one cannot approach things this way because one cannot find her there or here. One must go where she is, elsewhere, in a precarious condition, a very precarious condition. One may be able to be with her if one keeps remaining there. In this idea, the interviewer says, we separate this world from another world. This makes it very difficult. What is the practice in the real world? How do we qualify these visions? One cannot simulate this with the love of the Cathars, with the troubadours. And the love of the troubadours is Platonic love, the idea of love. And the ideas, when they incarnate downwards, are then lost in this world of matter. Because this world is of matter. And here we are making everything. We do not have things. We are converting things. But with this matter, as its relationships go lower, then everything corrupts to some extent. Therefore, it is necessary to return. From the moment of the explosion, the Big Bang, there is a war. And this is the evil implosion inwards, permits us in some way to return, to recover what was lost. The Queen of Sheba is found there within the implosion and recovery. And we'll just end off right there. Hail to Miguel Serrano, Irene Platt. And we'll be right back with a word from Mother. We love you so much. Yes, yes. Okay, we're going to keep reading. every night we've been reading from Ultimate Avatar, Miguel Serrano, Adolf Hitler, Ultimate Avatar. We have been just reading away. And we're going to keep reading, even though I just pulled the bloody. Okay. But we're going to read and smoke at the same time for your listening pleasure. Right? And where did we leave off? Yeah, we were the Maranos. All about the history of lots of history on how the banker myth was constructed, the protocols of the elders of Zion. And I think we should get to this. The Grail. The slave trade was in the hands of the bankers. Almost all the trusteeships of Indian labor were thus. The expedition of Columbus is a culmination of an ancient anxiety in the most sacred circles of Judaism. We extend the assurance that the conquest of America, its discovery by Columbus was largely a Jewish operation put together with one exact goal fixed in their minds from their very first involvement, but prepared much earlier. The history of the earth is now unknown. We know nothing for certain about what happens after the greatest planetary geological catastrophes. What became of the old traditions, myths, and legends? On what continents? And the Exodus? What is the Exodus truly? Surely not originally something belonging to the Jewish people. Like so many other things, they have stolen that too. See, Professor Worth has already spoken to us about the Gobi, but one of the most extraordinary Spanish conquistadors, if not the most extraordinary of them all, Pedro Sarmiento de Gamboa, the colonizer of the Straits of Magellan, found the city of King Philip, founder of the city of King Philip, later known as Port Famine. In his book, History of the Incas, he states the island of Atlantis was connected to the Americas. This is exactly what Donna and Lou told me. If the Americas were not only part of such an island, and there they also recognized the presence of Jews. What worries the Jews most is the mysterious disappearance of the Templars. Their treasure and their documents were never found, not by the Pope nor by the King of France. Their highest leadership disappeared without leaving a trace, together with a fleet setting out from the port of La Rochia. Many Templars took refuge in Portugal, fleeing the took refuge in Portugal, joining the Order of Christ. The Portuguese flag came to be the Templar one, and the empire of the small nation would be founded on cosmographic knowledge given to them by members of this dissolved order. The occult leaders of the Templars, their treasure, their secrets, were taken to America, a continent they knew and with which they maintained regular contact. They obtained the silver from there, with which they financed the building of the great cathedrals and construction guilds that built them. They maintained the strictest secrecy about all this, and in the moment of their defeat and persecution, their unknown masters departed with the treasure in the direction of this distant American world. Moreover, legend tells us that Parsifal went away in a ship with Templar insignia, carrying the Grail towards a distant land in the west, from whence he would never more return. Somewhere the Templars gathered the Viking, Visigoths, and Hyperborean tradition of this distant world of the white gods, our ancestors, together with the path that takes them there. They established contact with the Viking civilization of Tiahuanaco and the empire of Quetzalcoatl. This weighed heavily on the Templars, causing an essential change in their invisible top leadership that made them, at the end of their exterior path, break with the still impure Jewish, Christian, Benedictine, Cistercian origins of this order, first created by the son of noble Druids, Saint Bernard. To be truthful, this rupture began much earlier, almost at the beginning, with the separation of the temple from the mysterious conspiratorial organization founded in Jerusalem, the Priory of Zion, still active unto our day. The Templar order drew ever closer towards a truer Gnosticism through their contacts with the Ishmaelites and the Persian warriors of the Old Man of the Mountain, entering into a conflict of conscience with the sinister demiurge Jehovah, who had convened to use them, employing them as an esoteric armed militia. Templars began to discover that the Jewish Kabbalah is not Jewish, but Hyperborean and Aryan, and that it had been totally falsified and distorted in order to be used in ceremonial black magic and in the production of Frankenstein golems. Given the impossibility of producing a general mutation in the visible order, the Templars decided on their own destruction, and they did not offer defense. Their highest hyperboreanized leaders disappearing into the polar refuges of the white gods. Hence, they won by losing. Better knowledge of these events has come into my possession since the publication of the Golden Band, where I dedicated a long chapter to the Order of the Temple. Jews gained exact knowledge about the existence of the New World in Portugal, Columbus was able to gain access to geographic maps of the Western continent in the National Archives of the Treasury in Lisbon, where the king kept his secret documents. Perhaps some Marrano relatives opened the way and facilitated this access. Moreover, Columbus married the daughter of a descendant of the Templars. As we have said, Jews are the black shadow of the white gods. They became confident that the great treasure, the great secret they had been unable, until then had been unable to get control over. Kabbalah was only a very small part of it, right? The great secret they had until then been unable to get control over. Kabbalah was only a very small part of it. That had been taken to America. Thus, they had prepared for the important operation, only begun by Columbus, called the discovery of America. To think Marranos financed Columbus in order to find a distant place where they could escape from the Inquisition is to underestimate the real ends for which Judaism fights. Therefore, we have entitled this chapter with the name of a book by Otto Rahn, Crusade Against the Grail. Here's the truth. The Jew launched a true crusade against the white American gods to prevent that other edge of the universe from organizing a superior life in accord with Hyperborean knowledge, a polar existence, a resurrection of the Golden Age at the South Pole. To reach those ends, they would first make use of the Church of Rome and the evangelical zeal of old and new Christians, the white treason, and thus thrust of the Goth blood itself and the Goth bodies, but with their vision blinded and their souls completely Judaized, which is to say, Christian, with what we call Christians. And when that Christianism could do no more because it had exhausted its potential, then the Jews activated Masonry, whose path had already been prepared by the Marranos with their crypto banker organizations, their KK, their sacred congregations, preparing for an American independence. Preparing for an American, quote, independence with replacement institutions of liberal Anglo-Saxon Judaism and the Ashkenazi immigration directed towards the Babel of the North America. Both Americas would become brilliant cauldrons of monstrous miscegenation and mixing of spiritual cultures, not necessarily blood, but that's what facilitates the destruction of an original religion. And as we've said, we believe in love without death that didn't start here. Both Americas, with this Judeo-Christian cauldron of monstrous mixing. And as for the white gods, only in the secret cities of the Andes, within the hollow earth, the oasis of Antarctica remain, those impregnable paradises where the enemy can never penetrate. We do not know for certain the name of the Grand Admiral of the ocean sea. Documents of the time refer to him in this distinct way: Colum, Columbus, colon. He does not seem to have written in the hand of Spanish, Italian, or Portuguese very well, but he mixes them all together. Perhaps he only spoke Hebrew properly. We have a letter from him in Catalan with many errors also. What did he do before he came to Lisbon between 1476 and 1479? The liar Weisenthal claims him for the Jews. On his voyage, he did not seem to need to take any chaplain with him, but he did require an interpreter of Hebrew. Was that because he knew the 10 lost tribes were there already? And that interpreter might really have been a rabbi in disguise? In 1476, Columbus, by whichever name, made a mysterious voyage from Portugal to Thule. His son Fernando and Fray Bartolome de las Casas, two of his biographers, quote a letter of his that said he sailed to Thule. The place beyond must have been Greenland, according to the dates and latitudes he gave. And what would he have gone there in search of? He knew about the existence of Hyperboreans among those islands and the search there made by Theseus. He tried, no doubt, to follow in the footsteps of the white gods. Ptolemy had mentioned Tyle or Tool, to which he referred, who he gave the same name as Pythias, Ultima Tyle or Thule. Right, and we'll end right, and we'll just leave off right there because we're gonna continue in more of this history of the true grand conspiracy that genocided 100 million people in the name of Jesus Christ. Let me tell you, just like your stupid, ridiculous, evil book says, yeah, rivers of innocent blood. As Maria would say, how dare you? How could you? And we all can be deceived. I was deceived. She means after you full well realize this, you are siding with the people who murdered and tortured your ancestors. You know? And our people, we love you. We adore you without death. Heal, heil, heal, heil, heal.
Guiding those who seek the